of that video, but we'll get that to you later. But they closed the border for a little while, then they reopened it, and now if you turn over here, you can see these trucks are starting to move again. We spoke to one Iranian truck driver who told us that he was very scared about what's happening inside Iran, but that he wanted to get back home as quickly as possible to be sure that he could get back to his family.
This now is the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, Majid Takhravanchi. Deputy Minister, thank you for being with us. President Trump has suggested that he is open to negotiations with Iran at this point. What room for negotiations do you see?
Good morning, John. As you are aware, we have been under the United States and Israeli aggression for the last couple of days, and they have committed a big crime in the midst of negotiations while we were in Geneva just 2 days before the attack against Iran. We were having serious negotiations with our counterparts through the mediation of Omani Foreign Minister. And then everybody was satisfied at the end of the meeting. And in fact, we were supposed to send our technical teams to Vienna today. And then at the end of this week, we agreed to meet again. So all of a sudden, after the end of the meeting, just on Saturday, we faced a naked aggression being committed by the United States and Israel. How can they justify this? While their delegates were satisfied with the negotiations, and 2 days after, they committed a big crime. How can one talk about diplomacy while they betrayed the diplomacy, while they betrayed the trust needed for a diplomacy?
Who was in charge in Iran this morning?
The Constitution speaks for itself. We have a president, we have head of judiciary, we have the head of parliament. The supreme leader was assassinated, was martyred by Israeli and American aggression, and now a council is in charge, comprised of 3 people, who is doing his job until the new leader is going to be elected. So everything is in order.
As you mentioned, the strikes against Iran are being carried out by Israel and the United States. Why then is Iran striking back against the United Arab Emirates, against Bahrain, against Qatar, against Kuwait, against Jordan? Why stage these attacks?
First of all, we have good relations with our neighbors. Our policy towards our neighbors is quite clear. We want best of relations with our neighbors. At the same time, before the aggression, we informed our neighbors that if the America or Israel engages in animosity against Iran, definitely we will be in self-defense mode, and we will target the American assets, the American military bases in the region, wherever they are located, because they are legitimate targets in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. Therefore, whatever we are doing is to act in self-defense against American targets and American assets in the region.
Why is a hotel in Dubai a legitimate target?
Our policy remains the same. As I said, we attack military bases and military assets. If they remove from one base to another, that is not our problem.
How about the Saudi oil fields just across the Gulf? Why is that a target?
No, we are not responsible for that. We have already been in touch with our Saudi brothers, and we have talked about this issue. Iran is not responsible for the attack against the oil installations in Saudi Arabia. We have made it clear. We have officially announced today that was not one of the targets of the Iranian armed forces.
But these other nations in the region, whether it be Kuwait or the UAE or Oman or Qatar, should they continue to expect Iranian attacks?
As long as the aggression persists, we will be in a self-defense mode and we will act accordingly.
We have seen pictures from inside Iran of people celebrating the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. What is your reaction to those celebrations?
I'm sure that you have already seen the people pouring in the streets immediately after the announcement in the Iranian media about the demise of the supreme leader. So the people are mourning today in Iran, and they are very angry. The atmosphere is very angry today in Iran about the naked aggression against the leader of the Islamic Revolution, who has many followers, and not only in Iran, but also in other Islamic countries. He was the leader of a religious leader of millions of Shiites.
But how do you explain the celebrations that we have also seen?
I don't know what you are talking about, but if you compare those with people who have poured into the streets, the comparison speaks for itself.
How long can Iran hold out against the U.S. and Israeli attacks, which President Trump now says could last 4 or 5 weeks?
No, we will defend ourselves to the best of our ability, and time is not of the essence. We will do whatever necessary to protect our sovereignty and our people, no matter what.
Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takhravanchi, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. How about the Saudi oil fields just across the Gulf? Why is that a target?
No, we are not responsible for that. We have already been in touch with our Saudi brothers, and we have talked about this issue. Iran is not responsible for the attack against the oil installations in Saudi Arabia. We have made it clear. We have officially announced today that was not one of the targets of the Iranian armed forces.
State media in Iran report a U.S.-Israeli strike damaged a centuries-old UNESCO-designated place, Golestani Palace, dates back to the 16th century and is one of the oldest in Tehran. The palace's famous mirrored throne room, along with its museum artifacts, were previously moved to a secure vault following the deadly protests in January and during the 12-day war last June. Anti-war protests erupted across the U.S. on Monday. They took place in cities from New York and Boston to Chicago and San Francisco. Thousands gathered peacefully to express their opposition to what one attendee called, quote, endless, stupid, immoral, dangerous wars. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is investigating an engine fire in a United Airlines flight that forced pilots to make an emergency landing at LAX. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner had just taken off from Los Angeles. Pilots told firefighters they deployed both fire extinguishers built into the left engine, but were still receiving fire warnings. No one on board was injured. More now. Anti-war protests erupting across the U.S. on Monday as demonstrations begin to ramp up following the military operation in Iran. Protests took place in several cities, including Boston and Chicago. In New York City, protesters also expressed their skepticism, questioning the administration's motives for launching the war. Pro-war demonstrators held a rally in Times Square in favor of the U.S. strikes on Iran. They say the Iranian people want freedom from the Islamic regime. That's
if I die, I'm okay with it. If that leads to the destruction of this regime.
As U.S. and Israeli bombs started raining down on Iran, a woman who says she's in the southeastern city of Kerman shared this rare audio recording from inside the country.
U.S. strikes have begun, and I felt like I should record a video to say thank you, Mr. Trump. First of all, thank you, Netanyahu and the people of Israel. The responsibility of this war is on the Islamic Republic.
While this voice by no means is representative of a country of more than 90 million people, over the past 6 weeks we have been speaking with Iranians inside the country who oppose the regime. Many told us they wanted President Donald Trump's help. They were desperate, they said, after the bloody crackdown on protesters in January that killed thousands. But with a massive bombing campaign, reports of rising civilian casualties, including scores of schoolgirls killed and hospitals hit, the mood is shifting, even for some of those who want nothing more than this regime gone.
People are not happy. Many police stations are located next to homes. Last night, they struck one, and nearby homes were damaged.
The regime's repression and disruption to communication make it difficult for us to speak freely with people inside Iran, but we managed to get some text and audio messages.
We were happy that those who had shot at the people, at the youth, and killed them were being punished. The situation now is a mix. There's happiness, but also concern. And above all, we all hope that in the end they leave and that the Islamic Republic is no longer there.
Video this weekend showed celebrations on the streets as news broke that the man who oppressed them for more than 40 years, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is gone. The killing of Khamenei does not mean the end of this regime, for now. It's lashing out and striking back hard. And inside the country, it seems it fears another uprising. In Iran's Kurdish region, some people received this message. The enemy's plan, it said, will be, quote, street riots next. Any movement that disrupts security will be considered a direct cooperation with the enemy and will be faced with the strong fist of the IRGC intelligence organization. So many Iranians want to believe that freedom is within reach, that this is the beginning of the end of a 4-decade nightmare.
You always think the Islamic Republic is finished, and suddenly, from a place you wouldn't expect, everything becomes okay for them again. That scares me.
After the initial euphoria of this weekend, as the help Iranians were promised finally arrived, now for many, the reality that this may be a long and costly war is starting to sink in. Jumana Karachi, CNN, London.
Iran's regime is facing the biggest crisis in its history, but still there seems to be nobody new in charge. Here's why that's a serious problem. Now, it is many hours since Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed by, it seems, an Israeli airstrike, and still Iran's regime have yet to appoint a full-bodied successor here. Yes, there's a temporary council to carry out some functions of 3 key officials, and there are many figures clearly vying for the role, potentially, but perhaps because they fear themselves again being hit by an Israeli or American strike, no real leader has emerged publicly. Now, that's a serious problem because Iran is obviously at war here. There are key decisions to be made militarily. Iran's foreign minister suggested, in fact, that the plans Iran's military are currently following were handed out before Khamenei was killed, and they're sort of acting autonomously. That should be deeply worrying, certainly for Iran's adversaries, but also for Iranians themselves. Where's the off button here at all? And of course now Tehran has to work out when to stop, when to pursue any off-ramp the United States may be willing to give, when to talk, when to fight. All of that exceptionally hard if you don't have somebody calling the shots, particularly in a country as autocratic as Iran. A major challenge, a major question to be answered in the hours ahead.
أول مرة طلعوا 3 انفجارات كانوا بعاد شوي، طلعنا على السطح ولقينا إنه في 3 انفجارات كانوا ورانا مبين الدخنة بس. بعد 10 دقايق بيرجع ب6 تفجير ثاني ورانا تماما. بننزل كلياتنا بنهرب لتحت، وبضل شي 10 دقايق كمان بترجع تنزل الضربة الأخيرة. 3 غارات ورا بعض والحمد لله لقيتنا بخير وجينا لهون.
Two drones impacting the U.S. Embassy here in Riyadh. Ministry of Defense officials here say that it made minor damage and lit a fire. No indications of casualties, but not long after the impact here in Riyadh, the State Department issued a shelter-in-place warning for U.S. Embassy staff here in Riyadh, for U.S. consular officials in Jeddah in the west, and for U.S. consular officials in Dhahran to the east, much closer to Iran. The fact that Iran has broken through Saudi Arabia's defenses, it appears, been able to penetrate the capital, Riyadh, is being taken very, very seriously by officials in this city. Saudi Arabia is seen as a higher value target for Iran to hit than some of the other Gulf states that are closer. It sends a stronger message. The concern now is how this country, the United States, the GCC may respond. Expect a long night, is what I've been told.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight's special edition broadcast with breaking news. A strike on the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia by two suspected Iranian drones, the latest in a wave of reprisals across the region. That's an Iranian drone hitting a high-rise apartment in Bahrain over the weekend. Iran striking targets from Cyprus in the Mediterranean to Dubai. Now, the State Department tonight warning U.S. citizens in 14 area countries to leave now, including from Jordan, where the American embassy was evacuated earlier tonight. There was no attack there. The U.S. is saying for Americans to get out of those 14 area countries, easier said than done. Again, just a short time later, the Riyadh embassy was struck after that warning in Jordan. So was an American base in Kuwait over the weekend, killing 6 U.S. service members. 18 others were seriously wounded. We're just learning more about that attack. A senior U.S. official telling CNN's Jim Sciutto that American forces are preparing for a, quote, major uptick in attacks on Iran over the next 24 hours. Also tonight, the Israeli Defense Forces are striking Hezbollah command centers and weapons storage sites in Beirut. As that's unfolding, Iran is answering. This is new video of an Iranian missile attack on Tel Aviv. A new wave sending our crew into the bomb shelter in the basement of this building just an hour ago.
We are now going to penetrate the impenetrable. Are we ready?
Gorillas are actually very silent and it's very calm.
We have reached where gorillas are feeding and they are closer to us.
That's the most exciting thing about the gorillas. You can be walking, looking for them, thinking, will I ever see them? Then suddenly they're there. And it's such a magical feeling when they just appear out of nowhere.
We still need support from the global society to conserve these animals. Their support in that payment and other contributions is very important to us.
Cameron, your boss, the exiled former Crown Prince of Iran, made his pitch to lead Iran himself on CBS on Sunday. Take a listen.
They trust me as a transitional leader, not as the future king or future president or future whatever. I'm totally focused on my mission in life, which is let me bring the country to the point that they can make that free choice. That will be enough for me having said mission accomplished.
Are there specific plans that you and the Crown Prince have for him to take over temporarily in Iran?
Jake, it's very good to be with you. Yes, at the call of millions of his compatriots, I think you saw that on the 8th and 9th of January, that at his call, millions took to the streets. The Prince is stepping forward to lead the transition to democracy in Iran. Those plans are outlined in a very, very transparent fashion in the Iran Prosperity Project, which is publicly available. The second version of that transition plan, over 180 pages of 13 different areas of managing the country's affairs, was just put out last week. So it's all very publicly outlined. His role, the length of that transitional period as we see it, the multiple elections and referenda that would allow the Iranian people to express their views on the leadership, the future form of government. It's all outlined there. And the reason that we put that together is we knew this day would come, and we knew that the Crown Prince would be the leader that the people of Iran would trust to guide them through that process.
Breaking news in our world lead. As the U.S. military continues to carry out strikes against Iran, this war appears to be expanding. Overnight, the United Kingdom confirmed that its base in Cyprus was hit. And video shows a fire at an oil refinery after Saudi Arabia says it intercepted 2 Iranian drones. And we are also hearing more from President Trump about his objectives and next steps, which thus far have not been made abundantly clear. I actually spoke with the president this morning, one-on-one, a 9-minute phone call. I asked him if the U.S. is doing more beyond the military assault to help the Iranian people wrest control of their country from the regime. President Trump said, quote, yes, we are indeed. But right now we want everyone staying inside. It's not safe out there. In fact, the president claims it's about to get less safe. He told me, quote, we haven't even started hitting them hard. The big wave hasn't even happened. The big one is coming soon. Now, shortly after our conversation, the world saw a new round of attacks and explosions in Iran, although it's unclear if that was the big wave the president referenced to me. After I spoke with the president, he publicly discussed the war, explaining his goals for the first time since the attack began this weekend. The president saying he wants to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, annihilate the Iranian Navy, and Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions, and prevent the country from arming terrorists.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime.
So how long might it take to achieve these goals and then end the conflict? When I asked the president how long he thinks this is going to last, he said, quote, I don't want to see it go on too long. I always thought it would be 4 weeks, and we're a little ahead of schedule. Now, Iran has fired missiles at population centers in Israel, which participated in the attack with the U.S. But Iran has also launched a wide range of retaliatory attacks across the Middle East against Jordan and Kuwait and Qatar and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and, as you saw, Saudi Arabia, which has aligned many in the Sunni Arab world against Iran. The president telling me, quote, we were surprised. We told those countries we've got this, and now they want to fight. And they're aggressively fighting. They were going to be very little involved, and now they insist on being involved. The Iranians, the president said, quote, shot into a hotel. They shot into an apartment house. It just made them, meaning the Arab countries, angry. They love us, but they were watching. There was no reason for them to be involved, unquote. Now, even though Iran continues to retaliate at this hour, there is still an open question as to who is actually in charge in Iran, given U.S. strikes took out Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and 49 other Iranian leaders, President Trump told me, on day one. President Trump told me, quote, we don't know who the leadership is. We don't know who they'll pick. Maybe they'll get lucky and get someone who knows what they're doing. The Iranians, the president said, lost, quote, a lot in terms of leadership because of the initial strikes. 49 people, he said. It was an amazing strike. They got a little bit arrogant, unquote, by meeting all in one place, the president added. Quote, they thought they were undetectable. They weren't undetectable. We were shocked by it. We don't know who's leading the country now. They don't know who's leading. It's a little like the unemployment line. Now, regarding Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions, the president told me that his team tried to negotiate with the Iranians, but, quote, we couldn't make a deal with these people, unquote. Every new offer, he said, was met with the Iranians walking back a previous offer. He said Iran would not agree to stop enriching uranium, and, quote, they had all that enriched stuff, looked at redoing it there, but it was in such bad shape the mountain had basically collapsed, unquote. Trump referring there to the June 2025 U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. The president said, quote, they were a month away from having a nuclear weapon. Trump said to me about his military action, quote, this is the way, unquote, to deal with Iran. Quote, we don't have to worry about agreements, unquote. The president also gave me his assessment of how he thinks this is going so far, saying, quote, we're knocking the crap out of them. I think it's going very well. It's very powerful. We've got the greatest military in the world, and we're using it, unquote. Now, the use of the U.S. military in this operation has, of course, already come at a cost. As of this hour, we know of American service members killed and injured, six service members killed in action from that same attack in Kuwait. Others considerably wounded. In a separate interview with the New York Post, the president did not rule out sending U.S. troops to Iran, boots on the ground, quote, if they were necessary.
The 10,113 meeting of the Security Council is called to order. I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute on behalf of the Council to the delegation of the United Kingdom for its service as President of the Council for the month of February. I'm sure I speak for all members of the Council in expressing deep appreciation to the entire United Kingdom team for the great diplomatic skill with which they conducted the Council's business last month. The provisional agenda for this meeting is maintenance of international peace and security, children, technology, and education in conflict. The agenda is adopted.